Hi everyone. So far, all our guests have been from NIT Rourkela, but today we are deviating from that norm, and we have invited a very special guest who grew up in a small town in MP, studied in Hindi medium schools, cracked IIT J in English, and then after graduating from IIT Kanpur in civil engineering, has had a very successful career in analytics. He has worked in a number of companies like American Express and Facebook, and is currently working in DoorDash. He has a very rich data science experience ranging from risk analytics to marketing and product analytics. But what is even more commendable is something he started in the last 2 years, where he reflects upon his life events and shares some of these stories with us, which are highly motivational. He's also an angel investor. So, welcome, Rajil. It's a pleasure to be interacting with you and to be, to get a chance to listen to your story.
Thanks, Abhishek, for inviting me and giving me this platform. Hopefully, some of my experiences that I'm going to share today, hopefully some folks, especially early in their career, would resonate and can take a few cues from that. So, yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be in such an august line of speakers that you have invited before.
Yes. So, Rajil, take us to your childhood. Tell us about where did you grow up, your schools that you went to, your parents, etc.
Sure, Abhishek. So, I grew up in a very small village called Bedia, and it's literally a small village, not even a small town, with probably then a population of about 1,000 people. And I grew up in a very close knit community and a joint family setup. My father used to run a small kirana merchant or a grocery shop in the village, and my mother was a housewife. And yeah, while growing up, the nearest town was like 30 minutes drive away, and that's where I did most of my schooling because my village didn't have like the right set of. It just had one government school, and my parents were among the few who could afford to send me to a private school 30 minutes away, but. And they were not rich enough to arrange transportation to send me 1 hour away, where I could have gotten an English medium school. But and that school was also not willing to send a school bus. So, anyways, we ended up okay. Maybe this is a sweet spot. 30 minutes away, that town has a decent Hindi medium school. Let's go there. And I'm proud that I went there. I learned so many things. And um, uh, being in a Hindi medium school, I always am good at Hindi. So that's something I really cherish even today. That my grasp over Hindi language is good. And obviously, growing up in a small village, you tend to break up a lot of things because you already kind of know that you are in a small village, so you kind of overcompensate through your life. You kind of get into a learning path. So I think that kind of worked for me. Couple of more things that I remember today is that which is something I always felt, but probably started to articulating later on, that when you are at the center of adversities, inherently humans always respond better. They don't even feel that they are in bad situation. So in fact, when I was in the village, when the electricity used to come only for 8 hours a day, or when the road was too bad that many times I used to miss exams because it was flooded and whatnot, I used to take it as granted and moved on, and then you moved on fairly quickly and looked at the next step. And I remembered a lot of my distant family members who lived in bigger cities, and they used to think of it as a bigger event than I, who was facing those events, was like, okay, yeah, it's given. Not just me. Everyone in the village has the same thing. So what's the big deal? So I think, and luckily I started to articulate this better when I was doing a similar research on bullying on Facebook and Instagram last year, and we realized that this phenomena is actually true. This happens. So yeah, that was my village journey. I have my extended family there. I visit there once every couple of years. So yeah, that's my childhood story.
It's very, very inspiring, Rajil. When did you decide to sort of go for IITs and engineering, and how did you prepare in that small, village and in the nearby town?
Right. So Abhishek, one thing I always once I reflect, now that what was missing when I was in high school, for example, it was access to the right information. At that time there was no Google, and when you get information from different places, it's hard to figure out which one is the right one. I could say probably it's true even in the era of information today, because now probably there is too much of information. But in that era, it was hard to even know what IIT is. So I remember when I just finished my high school examination, I was sitting with a close friend of mine back then in the village, and I was very much willing to pursue a career in my village, running a small shop, taking over from my dad. That's what my goal was. And I remember talking about it at length, like, yeah, it sounds good to me. You wake up at 7 a.m., have your breakfast, get ready, start your shop at 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. And then you come back. In between, you take like a couple of breaks for lunch and dinner, and then you come back. You talk with your outside the house with a few friends here and there, and then you go back. So it was a very simpleton life. I just loved it growing up because that's the only thing I have seen and admired. So that was my game plan. Luckily, my elder brother heard it, and then he kind of pushed me that this is not something you should aspire for. You could achieve better things. You are smart. You have gotten consistent better grades. So maybe you should go to pursue something better. Again, luckily, I would say that in my distant family, there was a distant cousin who was pursuing JE or engineering entrance. So we spoke to him. He kind of took me to, so we went to Indore, which is the nearest city. And in that era, Indore used to be like, we used to go like probably once in a month or two. And it used to like literally daunt us like, wow, such a big city. I'm going to get lost. So that was the feeling I used to get when I used to visit Indore. When I went to meet this cousin of mine, he took me to a coaching institute, and the coaching institute person asked me whether you want to pursue engineering or medical. Till that time, I had no idea what I was doing. And then he just said, like, yeah, he wants to pursue engineering. And I was looking at him like, oh, really? Do I? And that's how it got decided. So you can imagine how gullible I was at that time, and how how was the level or extent of lack of decision making was at that time. But once a milestone was set, like, okay, you have to clear engineering entrance, then the whole thing started. Another thing that the reason that I switched from Hindi medium to English medium when I went to this to Indore is because the misinformation I had at that time was that engineering entrance, particularly for IITs, JEE, it doesn't even happen in Hindi. I was told by someone, which I can't name because it's like a general norm and it's hard to name a crowd, that, oh, you have to transition to English medium to even appear in that exam. Only when 2 years later I saw, while I was writing the mains examination, then I saw, oh, there is a question in Hindi too. I could have prepared in Hindi, I just didn't know it. So that was the reason I switched. But luckily it worked because that way at least I got pushed myself into learning English and getting better at it. Um, so yeah, that was my journey, and as you can imagine, bit of a luck, bit of a information at the right time, and bit of a push that got me into pursuing engineering. And I think after that, I did my best in terms of whatever the opportunity I got to learn at one of the good institutes in Indore, and I luckily got into IIT as well.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting. And if Indore seemed like a big city to you when you went to the IIT Kanpur campus, right? Did that awe you a little bit? And how was your first semester? Did it take a little bit of a time to settle in, you know, moving out of your comfort zone, meeting so many new people, a very different environment you were put into? All of us are, when we go
Right.
to
No,
this.
you're bang on. Like, I just didn't imagine how great it was. Uh, Once I went there, I was just amazed at everything. Like, the campus was like 1,100 acres, and the swimming pool was like Olympic size. I just didn't know what those things mean. I learned swimming back in village river. So just looking at those kind of facilities just awed me so much, so that I was so distracted and trying those different things, especially the sports, especially the cultural things, and so many things were so organized at IIT. So it was such a great experience all those 4 5 years, that whatever you wanted to pursue, you would have some of the best talents available to teach you, to monitor you, to mentor you. So I think that just awed me. Obviously, initially, it in fact took my focus away from studying, because I was like, okay, this probably I'm not gonna get ever. So let me just enjoy the most of it. So yes, you are right. I was in awe for the longest of the time, probably for at least a year or two. And whenever I used to go back to my village or to my town, and I used to tell people all these crazy stories that this happened, that happened, we met this person, we met that person, and it was just unbelievable. At least for first couple of years, until I got settled and then I got more comfortable and started belonging to, feeling like I belong to ID as well. Otherwise, the imposter syndrome was very high as well. At least for the first year, like probably I made I'm an imposter. Somehow I got into IIT. Probably I don't deserve it. That was a strong feeling, at least in my first year.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. One thing that I read in your LinkedIn profile, it was, um, I mean, I noticed it a bit that, and then I think you posted also on that about being part of the dance team. So tell me about that. You know, were you always interested in dance? Did you always used to dance, or did you pick this up in IIT? And then why did you pick it up if you did that? Tell me a
So
little bit more about that.
definitely, and thanks a lot for poking in that interest of mine. It's a so dance was something I just couldn't do. I just couldn't shake my leg till high school, and I was very interested in a lot of cultural activities back in the small town school, and that's where I got a lot of exposure to drama or extemporary speech or essay writing and other activities. A few things that I couldn't do at that time was A, sports. I was very bad at it. B, dancing and singing. I was very bad at it. So somehow I was like, okay, now that I am in a different environment where I am not gonna be, judged that I don't know dance. So it's a hiccup or it's a blocker in your mind that once you know that there are a lot of good dancers in your back in your village school or so you kind of go into your own shell and never get out of it or never learn anything, and you rather try what you're best at. Luckily, I just asked one of my friends to actually teach me one step while I was in high school. And in IIT Kanpur, as I said, it was all very structured. So they had a dance club, and they were in fact conducting auditions from day one of our, going there for their prestigious freshers dance. And there were only 5 slots available. So my goal was just to beat the sixth person and get in there. Luckily, that one step helped me. Every audition, whoever came, I just kept doing that step, and people were like, "Oh, this guy looks like he knows something." So you could say that, yeah, I probably faked it. But what I did is that once I was in top five, I did my best to learn whatever they were teaching me. And it was like a 15-20 days of training that we went through with our seniors. And I can say that yes, after that 15-20 days, I think I was at the top, not on the fifth position. So yeah, I think I learned my dance in college, and it was a great experience. I actually even interested even today. I dance very often, and yeah, it has become a part of my identity as well.
Very nice. Very nice. Um, Rajul, many of the students who are going to watch this are not going to be from IITs. Most of the guests that I've invited are also not from IITs. They are mostly from my college, which is an IIT Rourkela, right? Um, how much does, and then since you are here and you're an IIT, and I want to ask you this, how much does the IIT tag matter? And IIT, of course, we all know it's the premier engineering institute in India. uh, just the bar to get in there is pretty high. So on an average, the students who go there are definitely better in quantitative thinking, etc. um, but in the long run, in a long career, how much does that matter? Because there are so many other skills that you need to have to be successful. We have examples of people like Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai. None of them are from IITs as such, right? So, the audience here is non-IIT students. What do you want to tell them? Some of them missed IIT by just having a bad day, or some of them just were not that good in maths or physics or chemistry, but obviously they possess some of the other great skills. It may be computer programming, it may be something else, right, which is what their career may require later on, and they can be hugely successful. So what do you want to tell to them?
I would start with the fact that I believe IIT getting into IIT is neither necessary nor sufficient condition for success. I think that summarizes it well based on my experience in working in last 13 years. I would say it's not like, IITs don't provide you a great foundation. They do. And I'm being from IIT, it's part of my identity as well. Just yesterday, I was in a IIT alum meet as well. And I could say that, yes, it's like, getting the access to great education or getting the access to grow up along with great peers, but it doesn't guarantee success, right? And as you probably articulated better, that success is a combination of so many things. Getting the opportunity is one part of it, but then how do you best fulfill that opportunity? That's the best. For example, let's assume even getting into IIT is a success. A lot of people have great access to education growing up into big cities in all kind of fancy schools. They don't get it, right? Not every one of them are able to get it. Similar idea applies to the way we define success in later in life in corporate or whatever career people choose. So yes, it is one of the great factor to have if you are an engineering aspiring engineering student or who is trying to get into engineering college. I would definitely tell that you aim higher and try to get into IIT, because you want to at that stage it's always better to aim higher and get the best. But if you're not, that's perfectly okay. In my own career, I have seen so many great people who are not from IIT, and I've learned so much from them. In fact, even I have hired non-IIT people above IIT people because, as you said, Abhishek, it's just one factor that you look at when you're hiring, that, okay, what's the school? But there are so many other factors like how skilled you are, how are your communication skills, how are your leadership skills. So you are being judged for every opportunity on so many other factors, that the college factor, especially as you grow into your career, maybe 2 3 years down, after college, it just loses its value very rapidly. So maybe in your first job, you may be able to, get your foot into the door with an IIT tag, but it will keep losing its value over time. So unless you are switching to a different tag or, getting those skills that are necessary, it's gonna be difficult. If you're in IIT and watching this, please, don't assume that you're guaranteed a success. And the reason I say that, I have seen a lot such folks who still take a pride after so many years that they are from IIT, uh, and they are admittedly not very successful by any objective measure. The only success they have probably is to say that they were in IIT once. And there are so many non-IITians I know who don't even care where they were from. They are focused on the future, they are focused on the present, and they are achieving great success, including you. I'll probably take this moment to tell everyone that I remember working in Gurgaon Amex office, and you were a great success story in our times. I remember getting inspired by you. Probably we didn't speak that much, or we were in not in that circle, but I definitely remember through our common friends and circle the way your career grew, and we always try to learn, like, okay, how this guy is doing it and how can we do it. So yes, you always get inspirations from different sources, and the whole tag or the whole thinking that IITs are the only way we can achieve success is false. It's great, it's part of my identity. I enjoy it, I love it, the kind of things I got it. I will try to make best out of it. That's where I'll stop.
Thank you, Rajil. Thank you for your kind note about me as well. But really, to everyone who is listening, who is not in IIT, um, don't get too much bothered by that fact, right? What is done, and uh, as Rajil said, I mean, it can it get you some good opportunity initially, but then what matters in long run is a lot other things that you should try to probably work on and acquire, right? So thanks a lot, Rajil. um, one of the motivational stories that really um, I could relate to it a lot was something you mentioned about a course in third semester, which was very, very difficult. And then you mentioned the importance of showing up, which sometimes could be enough to not mess things up, right? So can you, for the audience who is going to watch this, tell us about that story and importance of showing up.
Sure. It was one of the stressful time in my life. First time I got worried. Okay, I may be not as good at academics as I thought while growing up in a small village town, because that's where I thought like, okay, I'm the top talent. But when I got into IIT, obviously the competition level was too much. People from all walk of lives and people with all single digit ranks were there. So this particular course was very difficult to start with. One of the reasons that I kind of missed the boat early is because I was focusing on multiple variety of things like dance and sports and whatnot. So I kind of took my focus away a bit. I was performing poorly, so much so that by the time two-thirds of the course was over and we just had one exam left, and the way it worked in IIT was that it was a cumulative performance over the semester that gets you a passing grade or whatever grade you get. And the professor announced that people who are below this line are probably not going to pass this course. And I remember a couple of my friends who were way above that line were also worried. And then that got me worried, like, okay, I'm below the line, should I get more worried because these people are more worried than me? Literally, I did a bit of a data analysis back then, that okay, every year this professor fails four people in the course. So I thought like, okay, this year also is probably gonna fail four people. I am second from the bottom. I just need to be fifth from the bottom. That was the approach I took initially. I just didn't know how to make it work, and I missed two-thirds of the classes anyways. So I asked for a friend. He gave me some background, like, okay, this is the chapter now in the process and whatnot. And with all the hopes lost, and when I say all the hopes lost, all those four people who were named and shamed with me, other three didn't start coming back to class because they thought like the boat has already sailed. We're gonna anyways fail, so there is no point in coming back. And they had a very hard time because they failed the course, and that was pre-rec for different courses, and their degrees got delayed and whatnot. For some reason I was an eternal optimist, and I was like, even if 33% is left and I need like overall 30% to graduate, maybe I can score 100% in the final exam. Too optimistic a goal. I still went ahead. I started attending the classes. Luckily, something went in my head, as I attended classes, I was able to understand the concepts, which I was not able to while just reading on myself. So I started showing up. The professor started recognizing me. I suddenly a week later I started asking questions too, which were a bit intelligent questions because now I had that context. Now I was able to break that initial hesitation. And a month was left, so I kind of ramped up as much as I could. Gave my final examination. I was Once the final results were out, I was 27th from the bottom, and then I wrote a very nice email to the professor that the objective of the course is that I learn the content. I know that I didn't perform well in the first two-thirds of the half no, of the semester, but at the end of the day, my cumulative performance is probably still better, and I'm a bottom 27th. So please don't fail me. And he failed 26 people that semester. So I was the last one who passed. I think the email worked. I think the showing up worked. I think just putting everything to avoid that failure state worked. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, so much to learn from here, not to give up. Uh, j- you know, if you just show up, right, and if you have that mindset to learn, and then we don't realize that we are, I mean, competing against a lot of other people who do not have that attitude. Who some of them just believe that the battle is lost, and they just give up, right?
right.
And then you, by just putting in some effort at at a later point in time, it also can really get ahead of so many other people, which may be good enough for you to not mess up your life. And it happens in um, all spheres of life, not just, that's why I like the story so much, because while you took the example of a course, I think it is as relevant in the workplace, or even in a relationship, right? Sometimes we just take it for granted, and uh, I mean, we're just too lazy of sort of valuing um, our relationships. um, so thanks a lot, Rajil, for sharing. this very motivational story. Rajil, you there? I think your video, just pausing it for a while. Yes. So that was a great story, Rajil, and
And
as I was saying, it's probably relevant in all spheres of life. Uh,
right. I would re-emphasize on point that it does apply to a lot of uh, different aspects of life, and in fact between you and me and the audience, I in fact have used that story for motivating myself whenever I have faced that situation in relationships, in corporate career. Whenever I feel like, okay, this particular senior partner or this particular leader doesn't have a good opinion on me, and I have seen many of my colleagues, once they see this, they have escaping is easier, right? So a lot of people escape. Maybe sometimes it is the right choice, but most of the time, if you just show up, talk to that leader, talk to that person, most of the things just resolve. And I think, yeah, that's the story. I kind of call it like my Moss story, mechanics of solid story. And every time I'm in a similar situation, I remember that, okay, I can clear Moss. Let's go ahead. So yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. And I didn't know about MOF, so I learned something new today. Um, I also really liked your UPSC story. I think you wanted to go for it. Many of the people from some of the states in particular, especially my state, people from Bihar, they are just, they just want to go into crack UPSC and go into civil services, right? But the reasons that they have for getting into civil service, I somehow haven't uh, been able to relate to some of those. It seems very unjustified to me, right? Like a government job, or so many other things that you hear. uh, so what's really a good reason to sort of aspire for going into civil services? And you experienced it for a couple of months, so what are some of the things you should be prepared to deal with during the preparation? And if you can also think about what someone may have to deal with afterwards, and talk about that. And finally, the things that you're giving up, right?
Right.
A corporate career which can take you to places like to US, to New York, to the great cities of the world, and a lot of money, and versus this career path which where you may have to spend your time in small towns, and um, right, so that you should be aware that you're making that choice, and you shouldn't repent afterwards, right? So um, please tell me a little bit about that UPSC experience.
Sure. So after graduation, obviously I started with a job in the data field because that's where I felt comfortable. But I always had this lingering aspiration to pursue civil services, and the reason was probably I also did my graduation from Kanpur, so it's in UP, and that belt particularly has a great charm about these services. And for a reason, because once you are in those services, especially first 10 years or so, when you are being charged on the ground for a district or for a division, there is a lot of followership that you can build on the ground. There's a lot of reputation you can build on the ground, and for some people, that reputation might even appear more fancy than money, or than coming into the business world. I think, to your point, I also, when I look back, I also realize and understand that so many people aspire for civil services, while not bashing it or not saying that it's not great. I just feel like it's a job, and so many people try and go there and waste there so much of time, while they could, or at least half of them, or at least X% of them could actually pursue a better alternate career in corporate. And 13 years down the line, I can say with confidence that there are a lot of civil services friends that I have, because probably some of them are my college mates or some of them I prepared with. They are having that experience that I wanted to have, and at the end of the day, I have achieved something in a different field. Uh, and a lot of times I see some kind of envy. The grass is always greener on the other side, kind of a situation. So it's not that UPSC is the only way or UPSC is the only great way of building a career. I was aspiring for it. Probably I was not 100% sure, anyways. I did it along with the job. I didn't do my 100% to it, but I still gave like whatever the best. I mean, I could do along with the job. I couldn't crack it, the final one, but I was pretty sure that I didn't want to waste so much of time in it, because I was always clear that it's a job for me. It's not like, that if it doesn't happen, what will I do, kind of a situation. So I think, especially now that I know, what kind of opportunities are available in private sector in India, I would strongly advise people who are blindly going in this direction to chase some kind of elusive and nondescript reputation. They should think twice, if they are only looking for that. Because based on my experiences speaking with at least 10 of civil services friends, what I hear is not those fancy stories. I hear what are the challenges they have, because that's what probably they share with me in confidence. Yes, their families might feel a bit more proud about their position, but there are similar kind of challenges, even in a government job, because at the end of the day, you're part of an organization. There are people above you, there are people below you, they are a business partner or they are political partners, and so on. So the situations are similar, the challenges are similar, the salaries are not similar, the responsibilities could be different. So I would say that, again, without bashing the services, it's a great path. A lot of people I know, they who are there, they actually wanted to be there. They actually feel like, contributing to the society in that manner. So if you really like that manner to contribute to the society, please go ahead. But for most of the folks who are going for the charm of it, you will be living in, most likely, in one of the smallest towns. You will be having all those kind of challenges that a small India town could have. And you might look at people who have an alternate career and are successful sitting in New York or Phoenix, and might feel like, oh, you could have that career. So if you are, unless you are very sure that you want that, don't just, blindly go and, start preparing for it. So that would be my advice to, most of the young fellows who are only going there for the charm of it. Especially after the globalization era, I think day by day the charm is getting poorer, and so many great opportunities coming in the private sector. And I think, as you alluded, like, it's probably easier to break the escape velocity of poverty if you're coming from that kind of a background in private sector rather than the government sector. So that's what I would advise. Last thing, if you still have confusion, probably try and speak with some of these tenured civil servant, how their experience have been. Obviously, they're going to tell you the positive, but also uh, pin them and share. Get to try to get a good sense of the overall experience, uh, especially the charm part of it. Most of the times, I hear from people that once they are out of the district and are posted into secretariats and whatnot, even the charm kind of goes down a bit. So yes, if you think that you can crack it, and if you think that that's the kind of life you want, go there. But definitely speak with people who are successful in that field to understand the positives. People who have left civil services, I know so many of them. They have left civil services after a few years. They started their own coaching institutes or some other businesses because they just couldn't handle that kind of a line of business. So even try to speak with them and then form an opinion what you want to pursue.
Totally agree. That's a great advice. Um, Rajil, coming to your corporate career, right? It's quite rich because you've worked in startups, you've worked in very large companies, uh, you have data science experience that's also quite varied from risk analytics to marketing and product analytics. You have also started um, this storytelling and then motivational storytelling, which is very unique. That is really a differentiator from what many of us have done in our career, right? And then this angel investing thing where you've invested in one very promising startup. I looked at their website and it seemed like a very promising startup. with so many, with COVID striking and so many businesses going online using the Shopify platform, they need to sort of make themselves visible. And it's a great sort of startup that is helping them do that, right? So you have done so many different things. Um, so tell me a little bit more about how you sort of think about your career so far. How has that been?
Sure. Thanks a lot again for asking that question. And again, yes, I have tried a few different things in my career, but I want to call out first that it's not that I have tried half-heartedly and moved fast here and there. I did risk management for almost 5 years before moving to product and marketing. So all those 5, 6 years, I went to the lowest level of details to understand how risk management works in consumer portfolio. I try to always continue what I am doing in some sense, and then learn a bit more.
And
So
I can vouch
obviously,
for that. I mean, I knew you at American Express, and um, you know, you were a partner in some sense for a brief while, and I can definitely vouch for that. That Rajil was the guy to go to when it came to sort of underwriting and line credit limit. So I can totally vouch for it, right?
right.
Sorry
So
for
once I developed a decent level of understanding and decent level of strength and a brand that okay, I know this stuff. I realized that okay, I it's time to move on. For me, it was always like you can say that a small town overcompensation philosophy that okay, I wanted to learn a few more things because I was always craving for more opportunities. So once I knew that okay, how the underwriting works, how the line management works, I was like, okay, what next? I started applying it to the small business side. It was very easy. I got supported from my leaders, like, oh, wow, you're natural at it. You are easily translating this to a different portfolio. Then I was like, okay, I'm getting better at it already. So I'm already going into my comfort zone. Maybe it's time to break it again. So then I went into marketing and product analytics. And I can tell you very frankly, first 6 months were hard. I the kind of context I gathered, the kind of things I could do in my sleep, I just couldn't do it there. I had to push hard for first 6 months. But after that, things again came, it started coming naturally to me, like how the marketing analytics work, how the product actually took a bit more time because we were initially focusing a lot on marketing. So for another couple of years, I did a lot of work with marketing teams designing their campaigns, ROIs, and whatnot. And once that started to come naturally to me, gradually a bit of reorg happened, and we started to focus on product, and that's where rest of my future got decided. I think 5 years back, I started first in the product space. It was a very weird and different space for me. Marketing was still something, again, intuitively I could figure like what we are doing. Product space in a finance world, I just didn't understand like how analytics can add value. But luckily, again, I took like 6 months and I figured like, okay, if I push hard enough, I'll probably learn how the space works. So yes, we figured a way, how product decisions can be informed through analytics, through data, and that was a rich experience I had. And post that, given I was in product, it helped me also secure a job with Facebook because in big tech companies, particularly, they are looking for people with a product mindset, and that's what I was able to develop while I was at Amex while doing product analytics. So you can say that I was always kind of learning the details and then slightly moving on to the next step and making sure that I'm transferring most of the knowledge that I've learned before. So I think I have I have seen people who have failed once they drastically change their career and they're totally lost. So even though on the face of it, it appears like I have drastically changed, I was a bit cautious in terms of when I'm changing it. Is there something that's gonna help me hold my grounds? Help me hold my confidence that okay, this is something I bring to the table. And obviously, when I was moving from Amex, kind of a company where I worked for 9.5 years, to a company like Facebook, which is a very different company. Big tech companies work very differently. They have a very different mindset, and so on. So there were a lot of things changing. And in fact, initially, I was myself not confident that why Facebook people are calling me. And it's a funny story. I tell my friends that first the recruiter reached out to me. I thought it said spam. I didn't reply. Very unprofessional of me. Only when they called me the next day, then I thought like, okay, it's legit. And then I literally, through that conversation, I realized that the way the recruiter approached me, that okay, these are the skills that you have mentioned and the things that you have worked, even though it might appear very different, a very different environment. Obviously, you're going to face a lot of challenge in the way the company operates, in the way the team operates, in the way a role of a manager here is. But at the core of it, we still do product analytics, and the core principles still apply. Can you prove that you can translate your learning? So my only job was to just simply translate my learnings from Amex to Facebook. And even till date, when people ask me like what extra preparation you did, I actually didn't do much of the preparation. Whatever the material they sent me to read a bit, just honing my coding skills, because that is something the kind of teams I was in, my VPs and whatnot, always focused. Even as a director, we were sometimes coding. So I was always hands-on. That helped in the tech world, because even in mid-senior position, sometimes you have to in the tech world. And secondly, yeah, I mean, I was actually able to translate. And in fact, that particular call with the HR was an eye opener for me, that, wow, I didn't even think that I could go into a different industry applying these skills. I always had a blocked vision that I'll probably, even if I have to move, I'll probably move in competitive firms or in the similar industry. So that kind of opened my eyes as well. So I'm glad that I took that call, and I'm glad that, I went ahead in that path. So that was about my high level career journey in data science and analytics. While I was doing that, while I was breaking those boundaries, and every time people say that work is different, life is different. I think everything is connected. You as a person is a whole sum of so many things. So if you are breaking your blockers at job, it kind of affects you in some different aspects of your life as well. So that happened around the same time, early 2020. One of my teammates back in India in Amex. He was very junior. He was an analyst. I just got him promoted to assistant manager, and then a few months later, he left the job. He started his own company. I started mentoring him initially. In fact, he was a bit scared that me being a director, he being a analyst, he was scared that how I'm going to treat this situation. But I was very supportive that if it is something that he wanted to pursue, I would support him. I would support my, with him, my college network, my, other networks and whatnot. I did initially, in fact, I put some seed money as well. That was the first seed investment I did back in 2020 with a person who was an analyst in my team. I worked with him he worked with me a couple of years. So I had certain level of trust. That thing worked out. Initially, obviously, the COVID hit and it was a bit of a struggle. I connected him with better people who know these areas better than me, obviously. So, but and he got better grooming from those people over last 2 years. I'm happy that that investment, paid off. Uh, that gave me more confidence that yes, probably I can unblock myself, trying to find people where I can probably not personally help in all capacities, but maybe in some capacities as well as through my network, I can help them. And the second company is AI Trillion that I invested big again because I believed in the founders. I knew them. There was a bit of a trust from the old days. So, and I think that my network and their energy and their existing platform can scale very well. So yes, and then I think one thing leads to another. So right now I think I'm invested in at least 10 plus companies. Obviously, these are the two big ones where I've put uh, more money and more time. Other ones are a bit small size investments. But yeah, and I'm still a novice in this field, but I believe in getting 1% better every day philosophy. So uh, yes, I have started calling myself an angel investor because now literally I have invested in 10 plus companies. All these labels, it's up to you when you want to put you on yourself. But when I was doing it for the first time, I didn't realize that it's called angel investing. I was just helping a friend out. So, and things just, I just learned my way out. Around the same time, I also, again, probably I don't call it angel investing because when you angel invest, generally you do it for a safe or equity or a part of the business. I always was doing, even when I was in a village and, when I grew up, I saw my family, or distant family doing lending business. Sometimes we used to borrow money from other businesses, or sometimes, we used to lend money and so on. So I helped a close friend with some money to start their business, and their business also got successful, and they paid me back. It was probably not an angel investing, but I realized that I was good at mentoring that person through that horrible journey that they had first few months setting up their physiotherapy store in Pune and so on. So through that journey also I realized that probably I can mentor well, and the kind of experiences I have had were not at all related to them, but the kind of when those experiences were happening to me, how I felt and how I reacted to those situations was something that these people resonated, and they told me that, the kind of experience you are sharing with us in private capacity, maybe a broader audience is out there who will like it, who will resonate. And that blocker also got away, that, I always thought only people with my background or my things will relate to me. I started to realize like it's not going to be true. The way I felt, that feeling may be common across different industries, across different journeys. So that's when I started posting on LinkedIn, and that's where I got good response. A lot of people, um, again, I feel that in a public forum, a lot of people don't respond the way, because people are, and admittedly, concerned about, how other people are going to react and whatnot. I think that hesitance was least to me, especially working at Facebook. I was actually working on creator teams, so I saw like different kind of influencers and creators and how they are creating their journey and how they are shaping up the world. I got inspired by my work as well. Like, okay, this is something I don't have to worry about how, some of my peers might think about it or laugh at me. I moved on, I shared their stories, and one thing that I feel good is that I get every once in a while, probably, not every once in a while, I get every day at least 2 or 3 or 5 messages where people ask for help in some form or shape. Not just money, but sometimes, it's legit, it's a business opportunity, so I take that. Most of the time they are simply asking for a help in going through a situation, and most of the times I'm, as a person, not even helping them, I'm simply empathizing with them, learning their part, and simply giving them 10 minutes of my life, or just replying to their text. And it just, feels so good that, okay, my experiences and my learnings, I could translate them back, and hopefully they can learn from their experience. So I'm glad that and the reason I continue posting is because, I know every time I post I get at least 5 to 10 messages of people who resonate with their story but can't publicly comment or learn more. So I think that's a drive as well that keeps me, continue on that path.
The best thing I personally like about your stories is it's coming from your own experiences, and you're usually sharing your own story, right? So it's very real. It's something relatable as well. And obviously you write very well, so that's also there. So really, please continue to do that. Do not stop there. Even if, say, I haven't messaged you so far, just do know that I'm reading it, and I really pick a cue here and there from that as well. Um, and one of the, you know, the most motivational story, if I can say, was where you talked about lifelong learning or a constant learning. And you talked about your background coming from a Hindi medium school, getting mocked uh, at college by people around you. But that didn't sort of deter you or force you to sort of avoid social contact, um, or lose your self-confidence. But it actually motivated you to sort of keep learning, get better at English, right? And you, I mean, you write so well and you speak so well too, and this has happened over a period of time because you wanted to learn, right? And in the end, you also gave an example of, someone at work sort of correcting your pronunciation some time back, and then you keep you're learning even today, right? So tell a little bit about that, right? How important it is, um, to continue this process of learning all the time.
Okay.
Um,
So sure, I think yeah, you're right. Like, coming from a Hindi medium background to going into a first of all English medium school, trying to learn through the JE. I think that part was still okay because it was more like science education, and I sailed through. But when I was in IIT, obviously people from different backgrounds were there, and it's not easy. And I think you're right that when people mock you or people make fun of you, a lot of us have a natural tendency to go into our shells and or either fight back or become aggressive or bitter. And that's probably the natural response anyone would have. And in fact, that's what a natural response even I had initially. But I remember that, when you have such repeated experiences, you have a choice. Either you can go into your shell, and I remember seeing so many people in their shell, and they were still not, willing to learn or willing to get out of that shell, and were happy in that particular shell. And I had a choice whether to face this mockery and, treat it as a learning and move on, or go into my shell. One example I would say, not just like, from Hindi to English, but when I was in my village, I was doing, swimming in the river, and I thought like I'm a great swimmer. And then, when I went to IIT in a great Olympic sized pool, first day for the, team selection, the coach asked me to float, asked us, like there were probably 15 of us, there were only 10 seats or something like that. He asked us to float, and I didn't know what float means. So I literally, jumped into the water and crossed the whole width underwater. And I thought like, okay, he's gonna see something in me that, okay, this guy is great, and he's gonna select me. He didn't. He told me like, you don't know how to float, and this is like, an advanced level training, and you are not fit for that. So I know I was not alone doing that mistake. There were a few more. Most of them never came back to the school again. I visited the next day. Obviously, I was not in the team. They never selected me in the team, but I started learning from the people who were in the team. I googled the word what float means. I learned from them what float means. So I think for me, what was different is that I always was afraid of going into my shell, because I have had those episodes in my life where, or in some aspects of my life, whenever I went into that shell, I realized down the line that I neither I learned something, nor I was a happy person. So, either way, I realized that it's okay to face your demons and just, learn through that experience. And more often than not, you won't believe me, the bullies I have faced in my life, more often than not, they started becoming my followers after a point in time, because they started to see my journey, that, being bullied by them for xyz reason, and eventually me prevailing the situation, me changing the context, and, eventually they starting to like me, and so on. So I've seen that so many times that for me now it's like rinse and repeat. If someone corrects you, hogs you down, bogs you down, you just listen to that, think it in a positive, note, learn that, get better at it, get better at 10 more things. This person will start learning from you on other 9 things and will start respecting you. So I think that's the mode I've taken. That's a choice, conscious choice I do whenever someone mocks me, whenever someone tries to pull me down. It's partly because of their ignorance, and it's partly because of, they just don't understand where I'm coming from. So it's okay. I kind of, take it with a pinch of salt and move on.
That's such a great attitude. And I mean, it is very insensitive for some of the other people to do that. But then from your point of view, if you are on the receiving end, I think that's the way to sort of handle it. So thank you, Rajil, for sharing that. And the last sort of story that I want you to talk about is life is now. It's such a powerful message. And it's not that people do not know that. It's widely known, everyone knows that, but yet it is not practiced so much. And especially in a country like India with, billion plus people, there is so much fierce competition. There's so much of societal pressure because that's the type of society we have. There is so much expectations around success, and we are all sort of running in that rat race that we fail to enjoy the smaller things in life, and we don't enjoy life itself in that. So you talked about life is now and touched upon a few things. So please, I mean, do share that as one of the last stories um, for people who are just starting their career. They're going to most likely think like you used to think at the beginning of your career. We all were. We had that hurry of reaching to 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 a point that we wanted to reach, right? But then now, after having gained some experience and after having seen life, what do you think is how we should sort of approach it?
Right. No, and I completely agree with your diagnosis of the problem that, coming from India, a country of a billion people where opportunities are fairly scarce and you have to fight for them. So what happens is that, when once you're in your growing up years, you're being trained to prepare for a certain exam, for example. And what you do is that effectively you are preparing for that exam and that becomes your whole sole goal. And other things in life, you postpone them, like, okay, I want to do sports, maybe I'll do start after 2 years when I crack this exam or I do this thing. And that phenomena or that habit that you developed or you have trained your mind on continues even after that. So it's not like you reach your first milestone and then suddenly you're going to change that particular day, that okay, now that I've reached the milestone, I'll start exploring, or start living the small things or enjoying the small things. It hardly works that way, because your mind is now trained to get a milestone and then again rush for it and then again postpone other things later on. That's what I figured was happening to me as well. Every time I was reaching a milestone, I hardly enjoyed it, and then I was moving to the next one, and then the next one. Uh, Luckily, somewhere along the line, I had a good support from family, friends who kind of kept pushing me that you shouldn't be forgetting. And I was never perfect at it. Probably now at this level of experience, I understand, I contextualize, I that everything has a value, and life goes together. Life goes in parallel, not in a series. It's not just a series of events, it's a parallel events. So now whatever I want, I actually give it a try, not just think that okay, once I have X much amount of money or whatnot, then I'll do it. I just have stopped that approach a while back. So for example, as of today, as you probably mentioned in the brief, that along with my corporate career, I am a board member for AI Trillion and investor in a few companies. So on weekends or wherever I find time, I sit with a few friends, analyze a few companies, and invest accordingly. Apart from that, I have written two songs. I was bad at singing, so I hired a singer, got them published to all the great platforms like Spotify and whatnot. So yes, I'm doing that. I'm pretty soon planning to start a weekly dance class because I like dancing, as I mentioned earlier. So I have a Monday blues. Every Sunday evening I feel like, oh my gosh, the week is starting. So one method I learned from a very young person who plans his board game nights on Monday evening, so that there's something to look for. And I think I like the approach. So I'm going to start a weekly dance class for people around me. So yes, what I believe is that yes, making money is important, growing in career is important. You can't ignore that, but at the same time, enjoying the life is also important. Partly, I would say a great mentor. My dad used to push me a lot, especially early in my career when I was focusing too much of gathering money from either job or side investments. And I was probably too deep into that I was not giving sufficient time to my family. At that time, he kept pushing me back. And in fact, that particular line is actually his. That life is actually not a event of a series of events. It's in parallel, and it kind of and not just one time, two time. Once you get this message multiple times, and once you probably sometimes you realize your mistakes too, then you finally get prepared. So I think, yeah, in that sense I would say that for me, if I have an idea, if I want to pursue something, I would rather do it now rather than park it 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line, because I don't know 3 years down the line I'll be here or not. What kind of situation would that be? Uh, so I would rather try things now. Obviously, I'll have to prioritize, and that is something I learned way back, that you want to do 10 things, prioritize them, continue doing those things, get better at those things. And just yesterday, I was asked by someone on similar note that how are you able to manage different things? And I told them initially it's a struggle. First 6 months, anything new I try, I give it 6 months. I focus on one side thing for 6 months. Once I get comfortable, then it doesn't take more than 10-15 minutes a day. So then I have enough time for trying something else as well. So that's how I'm approaching so far. Obviously, a dabbler in most of those things, but glad that I'm rising to a certain level that, for example, angel investing, I tried 2 years back. Now I can confidently say that, yes, I'm an angel investor. I started writing songs 10 years back. I never published them. finally I published them this year. So now I can call myself a creator on Spotify or YouTube. So yeah, I think I'm early in the journey, still trying to maximize those efforts. I still trying to dabble, write a few more. Probably my plan is to probably write at least 5 to 7 songs in next couple of years to have a full album. But yeah, I think those are things in parallel, and I give myself enough time to come up naturally. I don't push myself on these things. I push myself for growing at my career and job, but side things most of the time they come naturally because your mind is trained in situations. You articulate things in a verse, in a song, so let them come naturally rather than trying to push it, especially the artistic part of your brain. So I think that's how I'm able to manage multiple things so far. And yeah, that's what I tell everyone, that don't shut your other things down. And this is something probably not relevant to the conversation, but I've seen so many young people delaying their marriages because they feel like once they have X dollars in their bank, then they'll get married. And I laugh at it because at some point I was thinking like that too, and I realize now like how stupid that thought process was. So yeah, definitely, like achieving milestone is important, but that doesn't mean that you're throwing everything away.
Yes, yes. That's so profound. The what your father said, that things are happening in parallel, they're not happening in series, and you can't just postpone things and do things in series, right? And more often than not, you just keep on postponing your that thing that you love, that you have a passion for, that will probably get postponed to eternity, and you'll probably never find time if you're thinking in that manner for that particular piece. And you will always be prioritizing, say work, and then a few other things, right? So it's really a profound line, and I'm going to use that. I will give credit to you and your father, but I'm definitely going to use that somewhere. uh, so what's next, Rajil? So many things you're trying. What's next that we're going to see from you?
Great. So I'll probably use this platform to pre-announce what I have next in mind. Obviously, I have a full-time job, so I'm totally committed my work hours there. So whatever extra time I have, uh, as I said earlier, that I'm from a small village in a town, and I feel strongly that in this era, I see no reason why a lot of service-related work can't go there or can be outsourced there. It's not a new idea; it has been tried and tested by everyone in before. But I am working slightly in that direction. Obviously, I have commitment for full-time job, so the way I have started to think is that. Um, if I can find an operator, or if I can be an investor and someone with the similar mindset and similar vision can execute it, if I can push the right buttons or find the right person who is passionate about it as as much as me, I can provide the guidance, I can provide the context, I can provide money as well, at least initially, uh, for a year or so. So I think I have broke some grounds there, and we are planning, a small service-based company. The whole objective there would be to upskill the resources in the villages, not even tier three or tier two cities. I'm talking about small villages because I have seen, observed that talent is everywhere, opportunities are not, context is not, and that's why even that raw talent doesn't understand, like if they do this they can easily earn X much, or they can have a better life. So I think having that context, having that knowledge sitting here, I think I can create that bridge, and I think I'm passionate about that idea as well. I had to move every time to find an opportunity. Hopefully the next generation can find that opportunity sitting in their village. That would be my goal. So
That's such a
hopefully, yeah, I'll announce something. Obviously, I'm gonna work full time, so it's mostly gonna be me as a passive investor, and I am kind of able to convince someone to work as a CEO or a founder of that company. So I think things are in progress. Let's see how it goes.
that's a very noble cause and idea, and all the best for that. I think if you guys are able to do something, it's going to benefit a lot of people who do not have access to a lot of, no way to get access to some of these things, right? So it's it's going to be great if we can do something about it. Any closing remarks you have, Rajil?
Uh, Not much. I think we spoke at length about many things. So I would just say that, one thing that unblocked me a lot was getting rid of the imposter syndrome. So I would say that, most of the time where I didn't grow or was because I was under the imposter syndrome that I don't belong here. And that's where I was always detached and, never pushed myself. The moment that I broke my imposter syndrome helped me go there, open up with my vulnerabilities, try to get help and learn as much as I could. So I think times in my life when I was willing to learn, willing to show my vulnerabilities were the times I, came back stronger, I came back wiser. So I think that's the only remark I would say to people. Like just unblock yourself. It's just one life. Let's make most of it.
Thanks a lot, Rajil. Thanks a lot for sharing your story. It is highly inspiring and motivational. And please continue your good work. I said it, during the interview as well. Please continue all the good work that you're doing and the new things that you talked about, and all the best for that. I'm, confident as well as, hopeful that it is a success. So thanks a lot, Rajil, for taking the time out. Um, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me in.
I'm going to stop the recording now.